Concern, we have a crisis. Last year, the CARE Act sailed through the state legislature with near unanimous and bipartisan support.
This is a humane thing to do.
But opponents point to the threat of conservatorship, where people can be locked up and treated without their consent. And more than 50 advocacy groups condemn CARE Court as a costly mistake likely to do real harm. Some of the words that have been used to describe CARE Court: coercive, backwards, harmful. Are any of those fair? You laugh.
I laugh. I don't laugh dismissively. Those are talking points that have been on rewind for decades and decades, and I'm frankly exhausted by them.
Someone could end up in conservatorship, and that is a very big deal. Isn't CARE Court saying comply or else?
We have people end up in conservatorship all the time, and I get why people don't want to see more of those, but we have that system already. And here's all I ask: prove us wrong. Don't assume us wrong. Your compassion's not superior to our compassion.
But that's a big gamble when you're talking about conservatorships, people's lives. Prove us wrong.
Exact opposite.
Wait and see.
The gamble is allowing more people to die under our watch. The gamble is more families struggling, suffering. How dare we?
We see it as a pipeline to conservatorship, the greatest deprivation of civil liberties short of the death penalty.
Eve Garrow is a homelessness policy analyst for the ACLU of Southern California. What are the individual rights that you think someone would be stripped of under CARE Court?
The right to determine, for example, what medications go into your body.
There's no forced medication in CARE Court.
There's no forced medication, but when there's pressure and coercion, you're more likely to potentially comply with treatment that actually isn't meeting your needs.
Governor Newsom says that you're defending the status quo.
The administration likes to propose this false dichotomy that either we force people into treatment or we let them die on the streets.
You don't feel like that's what's at stake here?
I don't feel like that's what's at stake because obviously there's a third alternative.
Garrow says that alternative is for the state to provide comprehensive care for all Californians with mental health disabilities. Is that realistic?
Yes, it is. If we invest in those services instead of investing in a new court system, of course it is.
A lot of people will hear you and say, Eve, clearly the current situation is not working. Aren't we at the point where we have to try something else?
I agree completely with that. But the something else we need to try is not a civil court system.
We went with Garrow to the notorious Skid Row in Los Angeles, the county where 1 in 8 of the nation's homeless people lived. For years, on and off, that included Markeisha Babers, a 28-year-old who told us she has several serious mental health conditions, including bipolar disorder. When we met her, she lived in a shelter.
I go almost every day to ask if I can speak to a therapist or if I can, get some mental health services or help, and there are really none. Or if you do find one, it's like, oh, well, the waiting list is 6 months before you can actually talk to a therapist. Or
6 months?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Do you feel like you're getting medication that you need?
Absolutely not.
What has to happen in order for you to get that?
Honestly, I would have to be committed into a mental health hospital because going into places that offer like volunteer services, or they're backed up, or they don't have enough space, or my insurance doesn't cover some of the stuff that I need.
When I say the word CARE Court to you, what comes to your mind?
Medical incarceration. It's just another way to mass incarcerate people, and instead of it just being like criminal, it's medical now.
What would you like to be done?
I think there just needs to be way more attention to services and prevention rather than the consequences of not having those services.
This year, the Newsom administration invested about $17 billion to fight homelessness and treat mental illness.
Chance, there's hope.
But leaders in many counties say money earmarked for CARE Court is nowhere near enough for the thousands of people expected to land in this system.
Spare me. Honestly, I'm a little indignant by this rhetoric. The only thing limiting people is an unwillingness to be accountable, and I'm just done with
But
it.
are you overly optimistic on this one? This is a very taxed system, and you're expecting it to take on a lot more.
I'm done with the excuses. You should be done as a taxpayer. Everyone watching should be sick and tired of the excuses. There's plenty of money in this space.
Yet even with California facing the highest debt in the nation, Governor Newsom is asking voters to approve billions more for housing, and he admits that without enough, Care Court will not work.
You're promising here that anybody who goes into care court will have some kind of housing attached to them.
I'm not promising anything here. I'm promoting a promise where there's accountability at the local level. I'm not the mayor of California. I'm the governor.
And those local governments, if they don't comply,
There's
will be held
sanctions.
accountable.
They are, absolutely. Foundationally, what Care Court is about accountability at all levels.
Worth the billions of dollars that you're going to end up spending on
We're
this?
spending more on the back end. We could save taxpayers billions of dollars and save lives.
By December, Care Court will launch in 8 California counties, including Los Angeles and San Diego, where Anita and Farrow live. By the end of next year, it will be statewide.
What does a successful care court look like for Farrow?